I know you don't understand, but it's something you get. Listen, next time you'll understand better. Because it's everything here. It's not that we understand everything, but next time it becomes interesting.
Okay, hurry up.
Hari Om.
Sada Shiva Samarambha Shankaracharya Madhyama Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara. Om Bhadram Karnebihi Shrunuyama Bhadram Pashe Makshabhiryajatraha Tirairangai Tushtuvagamo Svastanubihi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vruddhashravah Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedah Swasti nastaksho arishtanihi Swasti no Bruhaspatir Dadatu Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. I think last class we did 3.6. Yeah. And
It should be 7. Question number 3, query number 3, 7.
Yeah, 3.7 we read.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this just to recap that 6 actually, the 6 verse, 3.6 verse.
Chapter 3, which chapter 3 and goes to,
You're okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, just
All right.
helping her find the page. Sorry.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So 3.6 actually talked about Hrudiyesha Atma. So like we mentioned before, till now prana we were talking, or Rishi was talking about prana and describing prana as the ultimate in terms of our experience. But then suddenly the Rishi changed the terminology here and he brought in something called Atma. And in fact, he brought it one verse before when he described prana as the shadow of the Atman. And we also saw that Hrudiyesha Atma, when we talk about Hrudiyesha Atma, Hrudi is supposed to be the Golaka for the Atman. Atman, when we talk about, Atman comes in various forms, but here we talked about Atman as that Satchit Ananda Atma. And the shadow that we talk about, prana becomes the shadow, but like I mentioned, every bit of it becomes a kind of a shadow, so to say. For example, when we talk about Ishvara, yeah, Maya is the shadow that we talk about. And when we talk about when we talk about anything that is part and parcel of the created universe, right from our buddhi, manaha, chittaha, ahankara, all of them, really speaking, are nothing but a shadow. Like to a person, they are shadows to that Atman. Why so? Because Atman is the only one that is there, really speaking. Advaita, when we look at from the Advaitic perspective, there is really nothing but the Brahman. So to say, even Ishvara, for that matter, is nothing but a shadow of that Atman. Yeah, because Ishvara is also a created entity with Atma as its Upadhi. Yeah, we have seen that before. So here, when we talk about Hrudiyesha Atma, another thing what we told is, although we talk about Maya as the Prakriti, as the mother, as Shakti, etc., really speaking, that Atman will be the prerequisite for prana to be the shadow, so to say. So prana is not the shadow of Maya, prana is the shadow of the Atman. Atman, Brahman that we talked about, because that is the only light available. Yeah. So when we talk about light in general in Advaita Vedanta, it is nothing but that particular Atman or the Brahman, which is the light. So everything else that is a shadow is nothing but a shadow of that particular Atman. We have seen that as such. Yeah. Shruti Esha Atma. And this becomes the Golakam for that particular mind and prana I mentioned to you already. And here the description of Vyana has started. Till the previous verse, when we talked about sustenance of the body, mind, and intellect, we saw that the prana occupies the top portion of the human being, meaning the eyes, ears, nose, and mouth, he said. That is where the prana resides by itself as a prana. And in the lower portion near Mooladhara, the prana resides as the apana. And in the next verse, we saw that in between these two, samana is the ruler. Samana prana is the ruler. Who this samana prana we heard is aiding the jiva or the human in terms of digestion, as well as sama nayati. It actually distributes the power to equally itself. Again, we said equally means not in terms of quantity, but equal means as per the requirement. So for a student, we said the requirement is more in the mind. Whereas for a person who is doing hard labor out in the yard, we require more energy to be in the legs and hands, less in terms of the brain or the intellect. Not necessary, but in general, whatever is required or wherever it is required, this samana prana will take care in terms of distribution of the energy as well. And in the 3.6, the Vyana aspect came into picture. And here it said this particular Vyana is moving around, Charati, Vyana Charati, it moves around through various nadis. And in these nadis, they talked about 101 nadis, which have again broken up, each one of them broken into 100. And each one of them further broke into 72,000 nadis, etc., etc. So overall, we talked about a very huge number when multiplied, and Swamiji calculated that as 72 crore, 72 lakhs, 10,201. So many nadis are there in which the Vyana moves around. Really speaking, like it talked about prana, it talked about apana, it talked about samana. Here, we did not see the text actually telling anything other than telling that this Vyana moves around. It really
Shankarji, I think it's all about nervous system.
Maybe may not be, because nervous system or the veins that we talk about, etc., nobody is able to really link them directly to the nadi. So many of the Swamijis, they leave the word nadi as nadi without trying to translate it into either nerve or vein or anything like that. Arteries, etc., etc.
Another way of thinking, is it possible to think of them as energy systems? So they are not physical, but it is
Correct.
energy that moves around.
Yeah. For example, in Saundarya Lahari text, you will find that from the feet of the mother, Shakti, it talks about various nadis transmitting the power to various chakras. So it talks about that in terms of these nadis as such. But really speaking, no direct translation to any known English word. Yeah. So many people leave nadi as the nadi itself. And it is, as you rightly pointed out, many people accept that this is the power, that is the prana that sustains. So when we talk about Vyana, it is part of the prana that we know as form of the prana. And this is the prana that sustains the energy chakras in terms of the human body. Another term that we thought I will slightly elaborate. You won't find this in any of the commentaries right now, including Gurudev's commentary. If you read, this may not be there. but this is my addition. I always tell you that so that you accept that with a pinch of salt. Yeah. So the term Vyana, when we talk about Vyana, the literal meaning of Vyana is that one which permeates, the one which expands. Yeah, that is what Vyana is. Based on that, many of the Swamijis, they actually translate this as the one which helps in terms of circulation of the blood. Now, moment we talk about circulation of blood, nadis is nothing but the blood vessels, really speaking. Whatever form that we talk about, either nerves or veins or arteries, etc. At the same time, they say, no, nadi doesn't mean that. But they accept that maybe the Vyana Prana can help in terms of the circulatory systems of various fluids in the body. That is one of the jobs of Vyana, is it is told. Yeah. Although we don't find that here. We don't find that description in the Upanishads as such. Now, Vyana, as I mentioned, is one which permeates, one which expands, one which goes beyond. Is the term Vyana is one of the meanings. The second meaning is, Vana. Vana is the forest. Vana means forest. Vyana, something which comes out of the forest. Something as a result of the forest. In another translated, when we take the meaning of the word itself. Now, forest has actually two meanings in our Shastras. One meaning is Aranyaka, where we are reading this Vedanta Upanishads are part of Aranyaka. So if you are reading these Upanishads, that means you are actually reading the Aranyakas. Something out of forest is, as a result of this study, whatever phala, whatever fruit you get becomes Vyana. There is one meaning which is there. So if the knowledge associated with the Upanishads is the Vyana, phala. Another word that we normally use, Aranyaka, is in terms of our stage in life. Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha. Vanaprastha ashrama is again that stage in everyone's life wherein we devote a considerable time to the sadhana that we do before taking the sannyasa. Yeah. So the four stages are Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and sannyasa. So again, if you take that meaning of the Vana, Vyana becomes a result of your Vanaprastha-ashrama, or again similar to what we talked about in terms of result of the forest, Aranyaka, that is the Upanishad that so similar meaning will come in whatever way we take this Vyana as the word. So when we talked about that particular aspect from Antakarana Suddhi that we require to do, Antakarana Suddhi is cleansing of your internal instruments that we talk about, which is the main purpose of your Vanaprastha ashrama that we have. It helps the seeker to internalize the vision. Really speaking, in Vanaprastha, what we do, till Grihastha, our vision is outward focused. In Vanaprastha, we try to turn it back. So a result of that, so this particular Vyana Prana helps a seeker in terms of expanding one's vision from an individual nature to the samashti or the totality. Second is it helps you internalize the vision, bring back the outgoing nature of your senses inside you. So Vyana has got these two important aspects to play in terms of the prana that we talked about. Yeah. And as I mentioned again, Nadi should not be confused with respect to any of the blood vessels related. We have seen that already. Yeah. Okay.
ShankarJi, I think the example you put about the forest, what I was thinking is the circulatory system you are mentioning, the result of that or something out of that is endocrine system, where different hormones at different levels are secreted, and then they are going in the circulation. So something is working with the brain and all these things. So if balance is there, then all things are regulated in a balanced way. And if balance is broken, then things are here and there. So yeah, the same thing I was thinking, bringing that together. So in today's, the thing I want to ask is, I was not clear about Saman, difference between Saman and Byan. Yeah.
Samana is that particular portion of the prana that helps in terms of sustaining the sharira, gross body that we talk about. Yeah, stula sharira. So in terms of stula sharira, the three pranas that are there, for example, the prana which operates in the upper regions of the eye, ear, etc., as I mentioned, including the breathing that we take, becomes part of the prana. Apana, it takes care of the requirements at the bottom of the body, at the Muladhara chakra, to eject out any waste. Predominantly, Manojji, not necessarily everywhere. We have this apana and prana working everywhere in the body, but predominantly they are noticeable at these two areas. And samana is the digestive aspect of the body. And also the verse talked about that it actually delivers the energy of the diversion in equal measure. So that's why it is called samana prana, I told. So samana, prana, apana, prana, samana and apana, they take care of the physical body aspects and its sustenance. Is that clear?
Yes, yeah, thank you.
Okay. So normally samana is taken as digestion and vyana is taken for the circulation. Yeah. But I have added a bit more in terms of vyana. I believe that vyana also helps you in terms of expansion, expanding the vision, and helps you in terms of the sadhana that one takes up. Okay. Okay. So
Did we talk about Udana?
3.7. Yeah.
I mean, that's next.
Sorry, any question is there?
No, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Athaikayodhva Udanaha Punyena Punyam Lokam Nayati Papena Papam Ubhabhyameva Manushya Lokam. So here we talked about now Vyana is over. Yeah. So what we are seeing is the question we must not forget. The question asked was how this prana is sustaining within the body by dividing itself. So Rishi is explaining that it is dividing itself in 5 different ways of prana, apana, samana. And now Vyana is completed. Now we are looking at the Udana prana, what it does. So here, again, suddenly a new terminology and also new subject is being introduced by the Rishi here. So in Udana, one of the aspects is very clear that Urdhva Udana. Urdhva is upward moving. So upward moving prana is referred to as the Udana prana. Yeah. So Atha Ekaya, by one Gurudev, not only Gurudev, all translations you will find, it is referring to one particular nadi. Because the previous verse talked about so many nadis that we talk about. So not only Vyana moves about these nadis, it says that this Udana prana, upward moving prana, also moves along, but it moves about only one specific one, it says. Ekaya, one specific nadi it uses for its movement, and punyena punyam lokam. So if somebody is doing punya, it will take you to that punya loka, yeah, and papena nayati, and papena papam ubhayabhyam eva manushya lokam. So it says that this udana prana's main job, it appears to be that it is not told here, but obviously it is referring to when at the antya kala, when the person is about to die, udana has got a very specific job, urdhvam. It takes up, but it uses one special nadi, it said. And normally in Yoga Shastra, this special nadi that we talk about, including the one for sadhana that they do in terms of raising the consciousness from Mooladhara to Sahasrara, etc., it talks about the special nadi as Sushumna nadi. So there are three nadis, Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna, which are supposed to be very important nadis for the Yoga Shastra. It appears that this particular verse is referring to that particular nadi, where it actually says that that Sushumna nadi is the one that Udana Prana uses for ejecting out your subtle body or the soul, whatever, or Jivatma that we talk about. It actually ascends upwards. So that Udana Urdhva, when we talk about, it ascends this particular Jiva outside of the body by going through this Sushumna nadi. And where does it take? It actually takes to various worlds. If you have done punyam, means if the punya result is much more, that punyam will go to, you will be taken to punya loka. Loka is either it can be taken as a world similar to ours, or it can be a field of experience. Lokas actually translation is field of experience. So it will take you to appropriate field of experience. And if you have done papa, it will take you to the papa loka. So either punya loka you will go or papa loka you will go. And if you have done both, means if it is more or less equal in terms of this, you will come back to manushya loka. We have seen this in the first question answer as well, when we talked about that if you are doing some of these jobs that are given by the Shastra, you will go to Chandraloka, but your return is guaranteed. You will come back anyway. But here it talks about two more aspects that are Punya Loka and Papa Loka. Gurudev is pretty clear in terms of, because this sin that we talk about, Papa normally is converted as sin, and Punya is the good actions that one takes up, etc. But our definition of sin as such is one which makes you repeat that particular action again and again. That is the definition of sin as per Gurudev. Any action that you do which will force you to take that up again and again, means what? You are getting attached to something. That becomes a sinful action, so to say. And punya, by that definition, becomes that particular action which you may not be tempted to take up again and again. Becomes a punya. I hope it is clear what I am telling. Yeah. So sinful action need not necessarily be that action which is bad by nature. That is how we define sin normally. But here, sin, Gurudev is pretty clear that anything that that particular thing you are again and again, means your raga dveshas will force you to do that particular action again and again, is a sinful action, which will keep you in the realm of samsara, in realm of the birth and death, or in, as Kathopanishad talks about, from death to death. You go on from death to death. That particular samsara is the sinful action. Now, there are two aspects to that particular definitions that are given, Ranjanatmaka buddhi visesha. Ranjanatmaka is entertainment. Ranjanatmaka buddhi visesha is papa. Means for entertainment's sake, you take this particular action again and again. Either it can be raga, dvesha. Even running away from dvesha is an action you are taking again and again to entertain yourself. Ranjanatmaka buddhi visesha. But if you think that, okay, I will not do that, I will do puja every day. I will do japa every day. Yeah. But you are taking those actions up for a specific purpose, which is selfish by nature. It may be good action that you are taking up. They are called dahanatmaka buddhi visesha. Means they're burning the desires in you, so to say. Dahanatmaka buddhi visesha. But as long as it is buddhi visesha, it is part of your buddhi, and you take these actions out of a selfish desire, it becomes a sin, it becomes a repetitive action, then it becomes a action for the samsara to continue. So both good and bad, as long as the attachment aspect is there, is bad for you.
Yeah. So it's a little bit different from the way we think of punya. That,
Correct.
dan is
Yeah.
punya,
Correct.
and being selfless service is also punya, but attachment to all of that becomes papa.
Attachment.
No.
By
Attachment to
by-
any of them by nature is a
just
papa.
any attachment. Whether
Even
selfish or
doing
not.
punya?
Yes.
Yeah.
So in that way, punya also is binding.
Yeah.
It will make us come
because
back
of the
again.
binding. Okay, you don't want
Yeah.
to bind
So
yourself.
Yeah.
normally we
So
think
I
that
had
we-
a.
Go ahead.
This internet is very bad.
No problem.
Sorry, we have very poor internet here. Maybe we have to.
Tanaji,
open
it's
the-
okay.
It's because only we are having one. Yeah, just open the door because sometimes that helps. Please speak again.
Both, as you rightly mentioned, both the good actions and bad actions have got a tendency to bind you. The attachment is there. You may think that I am doing a selfless service, but deep within
Yes.
there is a requirement for, or you feel very good if somebody says that you are doing a selfless service.
Yeah.
The moment you have that, and if you don't have that Krishnarpanam buddhi, means you
Mhm.
do it and you forget it. If somebody says that, did I do it? No, like that, if you have that type of an attitude, it is different, but it's very, very difficult. In normal sense, whether you do a dana, whether you do a service, there is a ego aspect that is there behind, and that becomes bad for you. It becomes a sin. Not only that, if it becomes binding on you, suppose you are doing this every fortnight, you go and do this service, or in the kitchen, let us say, of the homeless. And one day you could not go because of some reason, and you miss that so much. And you keep on telling yourself, oh, I miss that so much. I miss that particular this one. And you tell 100 people, whomever you are seeing, normally I do it, but today I could not do it, etc. Then it is so much of a binding. You are getting happiness out of doing that particular service. Then it becomes a binding act on your case. And then it becomes a papa, as per definition given by the Gurudev here. Yeah. So it appears as if the Udana Prana, the main job is to take out the soul at the time of birth and take you to the different planes of experience, different lokas, so to say. Maybe there is a Swarga, maybe there is a Naraka, maybe there is other worlds, that the 7 worlds on the top and 7 bottom, etc., the 14 lokas that are there. Doesn't matter where, somehow Udana is getting that particular knowledge as to where you will go. The Upanishad talks about it, how and where it takes you, in the next 2 verses, so I will not go into that right now. But Udana appears to be that prana which actually helps the soul from not from transmigration, it is for transmigration. It helps the soul in transmigration. Means from this body to the next body, Udana prana stays with you. All other pranas, whether they stay or not, Udana stays with you, takes you to the next sloka. Make sure that you spend off your good punya or bad papa. And if you are lucky, if both are there in your case, then you will come back to Manushya Loka. Ubhayabhyam Manushya Loke. Yeah, Manushya Loke. So human world is taken, the person comes back to the human world if both punya and papa are similar amounts, let us say. Yeah, Ubhayabhyam. Both are there, but in equal this one. So suppose your punya quota is more, let us say. Then you go to a higher loka, Swarga, spend off that portion of punya, and when punya and papa become more or less the same, you come back to Manushya Loka. But if your papa is too high, then you may come down to lower yonis, as the Shastra says. This book is not talking about it, so we will not go into that particular. Yeah.
As ShankarJi, as you explained about the loka, that is the field of experience. So, does it make sense? You can have the field of experience here itself. If everything works well, you are feeling much better. Your soul is feeling better. And I have another question is, you mentioned 108 nadi, and you talked about only 2 Ida Pingala. And from today's thing, people usually associate that with parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. Once both are balanced, then Susumna can arise. So else it is difficult to come on that. So can you comment on those actually? If all the balance are there, is the field of experience here itself is better rather than other things exist or not? Who knows?
Yeah. So even, for example, the planes that are exist in this particular loka itself, you are telling, again, the same thing can be told, who knows? Yeah. So the who knows thing is equally applicable to, even if we are thinking there is a plane of existing here itself where that particular punya or papa can be expanded, for example. Yeah. We don't know, Manojji. Neither I would like to go into the details of Ida Pingala and what other 72 crore nadis are there and how they will be, how they are being used by Vyana or the Prana, etc. They are not the realm of the talk in Advaita Vedanta. That is purely a yogic terminology which is used in your pranayama. Yeah. So Ida Pingala and Sushumna supposed to be 3 important nadis. So I mentioned that. And Sushumna nadi, Gurudev mentioned here in his commentary. He says that one now that we talk about, not now, one nadi that we talked about here, or the Upanishad talking, is Sushumna nadi is what Gurudev mentioned. Okay? That's why I had to mention that. And Udana somehow makes use of the similar nadi system for ejecting out the soul from the body. That is what we are talking about. And as I mentioned in this one before, yeah, field of experience definitely can be here and where itself. Need not necessarily be somewhere else or some other loka one need to travel to, not necessary at all. It is field of experience, and Gurudev also mentions that in his commentary. He does mention that it is a field of experience, it can be anywhere. But unfortunately, there is no specific mention in any of the Upanishads as to whether it is the plane of experience here, field of experience here, or it is somewhere other lokas. But many of the other texts supporting this do mention about other lokas existence, but we don't know. I don't know exactly whether what is the truth. Yeah, that is my comment on that.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
No, it's not.
Next, this one.
Yes.
Next.
Yeah, we have to have the right internet in this room. Yeah. No, Shankarji, Manojji's question actually just reminded me, like, you know, I follow the path of yoga as well.
Okay.
So Ida, Pingala, Shushumna, they are channels. That is what we are told. And Antarkaran Shuddhi, like you mentioned in Vyana, is like, if you take it in the broader sense, it permeates, it expands. Hopefully our vision also expands. And that expansion leads to Antarkan Shuddhi. And actually, without having Ida Pingala balance, there is no question at all that Shushumna will rise. People can imagine whatever they can want to. It's a lot of it is imagination. But rising of Shushum.
Sorry.
No.
I'm cutting you, I know that. Yeah, I'm cutting you, I know that. Why I'm cutting you is Shankaracharya is pretty clear in terms of accepting certain concepts from yoga philosophy system. Yeah, but he doesn't accept fully the definitions that are given in the yoga system. So when you talk about Ida, Pingala, balance, Sushumna cannot be raised, he doesn't even talk about those things, because as far as Advaita Vedanta is concerned, that so-called Kundalini Yoga doesn't have any option as an option for your moksha. As far as Advaita Vedanta and the Shankara is concerned, the only way one can attain moksha is through jnana. He is pretty clear, whether you take Viveka Chudamani or any of his texts, only through jnana moksha is possible. So this raising of consciousness, etc., or the yoga terms that are there have no real significance as far as Shankara is concerned. So in Advaita class, we should not get confused with the other terminology that we are bringing from yoga system. Certain names that he has used, definitely Shankara accepts them in terms of the, for example, here, Sushumna is the nadi which actually takes the soul out of the body at the time of death. Only to that level we are accepting that particular this one. We will not dwell into the other aspects of yoga. We may follow, but we will not do that in this particular class. Okay. And I don't have enough knowledge even to either say yes or no, because I don't follow yoga system as such. Aparakshanubhuti. You know that text? Aparakshanubhuti by Shankaracharya. Have you heard about that? No?
Yes.
I'm sure Manojji must have read that particular text, or at least heard about that. This aparaksha anubhuti, aparoksha anubhuti. Paroksha is distant. Aparoksha is very close. Yeah. Aparoksha anubhuti is the anubhuti is your experience that we talk about. So when we talk about this aparoksha anubhuti, it is nothing but the once you do the sadhana, how you experience that particular Atman is aparoksha anubhuti. In that, from verse 100, I think 101 till about 130, Shankaracharya takes a great care in terms of redefining all the terms of yoga system. Okay, so you can go through them to see how he redefines those terms in terms of the understanding of sadhana in Advaita Vedanta. Yeah, a very interesting text actually. You can go through them. Okay. Okay, so 3.8. When we see this, again, the Rishi here will take us a diversion once more into a new terminology that he brings into this. Suddenly, from Udana taking a soul at the time of death and taking the soul out of the body. I'm using soul in a very loose way, but we talk about Jivatma, the subtle body, Udana Prana, a combination of these things going from one body to the other body. You will find this in this mentioned in Bhagavad Gita also. Krishna talks about this particular Antyakala and how that this one goes, etc., etc. Yeah. Here in 3.8, you will find that the Rishi actually is introducing a very important aspect of any Upanishad, which we call it as Upasana. By taking something very gross, very small, compared to the original, we do a upasana in terms of bringing in the a outside aspect and comparing it with something inside you. So when we talk about prana, till now we were talking about prana inside you, but obviously in verse 1 also we have seen that that prana is equivalent to the Surya, and that Rai is equivalent to Chandra. So we have seen this type of upasanas being mentioned here. Here again, Rishi is going into a upasana methodology for us to understand this particular 5 different pranas and how we can compare it with certain aspects outside. Again, the sun is being used here. You will see here, Aditya ho vai, Bhahyaha, Bhahyaha, Prana Udayati, Yesha Hyenam, Chakshusham, Pranam, Anugruhna, Anaha, Prithvyam, Prithivyam, Ya Devata, Saisha, Purushasya, Apanam, Avashtabhi, Antara, Yadakashaha, Tasamano, Vayurvyanaha. So here, each of these pranas are being equated to some of the aspects we see in the creation outside. So till now we are thinking that these pranas are inside supporting individual as such, but as I mentioned, the one of the aspects of dhyana is to permeate, to expand. Is dhyana. Very definition of the word dhyana is expansion. One of the expansion that we see in any sadhana within the Advaita Vedanta is to move from what we call from Vyashti to Samashti. Vyashti, when we talk about, is individuality. From individual, we require to move to the totality. So when we see gross body as Vishwa, we require to move to a totality which we call as Virat. Like in Bhagavad Gita, the Virat Swarup that Sri Krishna shows Arjuna, where Arjuna sees the Virat Roop of the Sri Krishna, where every being goes into his mouth and it's as if he is being swallowing. And so many people coming out of it, so many people going out of it. So this particular Virat is nothing but the totality of all the gross bodies. All Vishwas put together becomes a Virat aspect that we see. Similarly, when we talk about our subtle body, the consciousness associated with our subtle body, we call it as Taijasa. The consciousness, the ego associated with that particular subtle body at individual level is Taijasa. Whereas the same subtle body at the totality level is Hiranyagarbha. So this is the terms that are there. So when we talk about any of the upasana, any of the sadhana, we actually try to say that this particular aspect of individuality that I maintain for me, either in the form of Vishwa or Taijasa, I require to expand to include every known aspects of these bodies. So Hiranyagarbha will include not only humans we are talking about, every aspect of wherever the subtle body is there, of all the beings put together, will become Hiranyagarbha. And our causal body is actually beyond our senses. The experience that we gain of causal body is in the deep sleep, when mind becomes, mind is not there, body is not there, everything becomes laya. We experience that our causal body as a ajnana, as total ignorance in our deep sleep. And we talk about that particular thing as Anandamaya Kosha, because there the regular pain is not there. Its absence of pain is defined as the Ananda there. Not real bliss that we are talking about, but is absence of the pain that becomes the Ananda. Now this that particular experience of our deep sleep, we will not experience in our deep sleep, but once we get up into our waking state, Vishwa, we only recognize that particular aspect of our deep sleep when I did not have any pain associated, sukha dukkha associated with my physical body or this one. And that particular aspect, we call it as prajna, one who is associated with that. So this prajna at the individual level is stored at the totality, is being shown as the Ishvara. So this is not that particular Ishvara of Maya that we are talking about. All causal bodies put together is Ishvara. He is also called Ishvara. Now, our sadhana is always to move from Yashti to Samashti. From this particular aspect of individuality to the totality is the upasana that we are talking about here. Yeah. So this particular aspect is again and again we will see in many Upanishads as an upasana that one required to do. But to directly do a upasana on, for example, Virat, or for example, any Hiranyagarbha, very difficult for us to imagine that. So we will take some symbolic item outside which represents that particular aspect of the totality, and we see that particular symbol, but we try to look at that particular ideal behind, and in order to raise our consciousness, so to say. And this is where the Vyana plays a significant role in terms of the expansion that we talk about. So all upasanas that we talk about, my belief is Vyana is the one which actually helps you in terms of expanding your association with the consciousness from Vyashti to Samashti. So here we have seen Aditya Hovai Bahya. Bahya is outer. External is called Bahya. Yeah? So here the sun is really the cosmic prana. Cosmic prana, Bahya, outside prana is nothing but this particular sun, it says. Yeah? And blesses the prana in the eye. Chakshuhu. Chakshuhu is the eye. So it's only representative. Again, till now we have seen that the prana operates at the top portion with the eyes and ears and nose, etc., etc. But eye has got a special power when it comes to the five senses that are there. Nayanam pradhanam. That particular thing is always told that eye is the most important of the senses. You mean to say that other senses are not required, or whether I can? But no. But this is Nayanam pradhanam. There are two aspects that are there. If you take this eye as the sense, if you see, it need not come in contact with that something for that particular eye to function. Even if the object is a mile away, people with, if the conditions are good, you are able to see, you are able to perceive through the eye. Whereas the other four require some kind of a touch. Even smell requires certain this one to reach your nose, and then only the smell will come. Sound should reach your ear before that particular thing it is required to be done. So Nayanam is supposed to be pradhana in terms of the five senses, Jnanendriyas that we have. And here it is being told that particular prana in your eye is nothing but the sun outside. So sun becomes the devata for the eye in a way. Yeah. So in Jayaji's class on Monday, one of the verses in chapter 18 talks about this particular aspect as the deva becomes a very important role that one plays in terms of the karma, the very action that one does. The god behind, devata behind, becomes a very important role, and that actually Jayaji mentioned is one of the reasons why you should think that you are not a doer. You are not a karta, you are not a bhokta is very easy to understand if you believe, if you can understand the fact that it is the Devata who actually is supporting this, and without that you are nothing. You are an inert Golaka. Really speaking, this eye is there, but if there is no power of seeing behind, eye may be functioning quite okay if it's there, but you cannot see. And all of us go through this as the age comes through, really speaking. Without the aid of the specs, one cannot read, one cannot see. There are so many other aspects that are there. When Devata becomes a little bit weak, not Devata becomes weak, this one's become a little bit weak in terms of taking the support from that Devata. So the idea is that sun is that particular Devata, and the eye becomes the internal aspect that it is supporting, so to say. Yeah. And the goddess of the earth attracts and controls Apana. The Apanam avashtabhyantara yadakashaha. So this particular thing, it talks about that the goddess earth, we don't say earth attracts. We always say goddess earth attracts. So Devata, earth becomes a Devata, and that particular Devata controls the Apana inside you. And very appropriate. Gurudev is so enamored by the way rishis have mentioned this so many thousands of years back, that there is an attraction that the earth has for any object that is being expelled out of the human body, so to say. It sustains in terms of the gravitational force we can talk about. Yeah. So the goddess earth attracts and controls the Apana aspect which is there. And the interspace between the sun and earth is Samana. So here we are talking about that interspace between the sun and the earth is the Samana. So if the sun is controlling the eye and earth is controlling Apana, and we said Samana is between the top and the Muladhara, that becomes Samana. So here outside, when we talk about the interspace between the sun and the earth, becomes the aspect which is supporting the Samana Vayu. Samana Vayu, you can actually talk about in terms of nourishing. Gurudev says when the sun rays come from the sun to the earth, so to say, really it is only the radiation that comes through, and this radiation is the most important aspects in terms of providing the nourishment to us in terms of whatever we are getting. Whether it is any trees that come up, everything is working only because of this particular energy that comes from sun to earth through this radiation. And that becomes Samana. So, and equally, if if it is a big tree, then it absorbs much more energy. If it is a small plant, it absorbs less energy. So depending upon the requirement, the sun's radiation provides that nourishment to each and every being on this particular earth. The way Samana is also explained, that it helps in digestion, and also it helps in giving the nourishment to various body parts as per the requirement. So here it is being told that interspace between the sun and earth is the Samana Vayu. And the Vyana is linked to the wind, the Vayu. Again, if you take that particular aspect, as I mentioned, what we experience here on the earth is that this particular Vayu element, the air, the wind element which is there, is the one which permeates in and through everywhere. Apart from the space aspect, it is the Vayu which is the much expansive role that it plays in terms of sustaining everybody. And here Vayu is being equal to the Vyana Prana. So again, as I mentioned, all these are nothing but aspects of Upasana. Taking something which is there outside, which is much smaller compared to the overall ideal behind that we are talking about, but to reduce ourselves to an individuality is a sure aspect to remain within samsara. The only way you can come out of it by expanding your vision. And this expansion of the vision is done using the Upasana methodology, which the Rishi has introduced here. Okay. Now, we have seen that in our Shanti mantra, when we talk about that Shanti, 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 Gurudev always describes that as Adi Bhautika, Adi Daivika, and Adhyatmika, the three levels of Shanti that we talk about. If you read here the question does mention about Adhyatmika, how the prana is sustained outside, and Bhahyaha, and how it is sustained Adhyatma. So in terms of this Adi Daivika, Adi Bhautika, and Adhyatmika, we can also bring in the concepts here in terms of our Upasana. Means Adi Bhautika, for example, is the physical sun. It is the physical sun becomes the Deva. And Adi Daivika is the power of that sun to illuminate the objects, support our eye. Yeah? And Adhyatmika is the faculty to know the illuminated objects. So in Adhyatmika terms, in the internal terms, I am able to illumine the objects outside using the mind and using the eye. The Golaka, the instrument, and the mind inside, Adhyatmika, I am able to illuminate the objects outside. Now, this is how the three aspects of Adi Daivika, Adi Bhautika, and Adhyatmika are brought in through this Upasana. It's a very, very important step that we are talking about in terms of seeing and visualizing the overall plan, overall prana, overall Atma, without which none of us can sustain. So this particular aspect of Upasana is introduced here by the Rishi here. Any questions on them?
It's gone over our head, at least my head. I do not know about others. But anyway, there seems some connection between what we have seen and what you said today about the sun being Deva of eyes. Deva of eyes. Like when I was growing up, I saw some Pujariji or Brahmins, they bring home when child was born and make his birth chart, and he will tell right away his eyes are weak by reading the chart. But his son is weak, so he will need glasses, he will need this and that. I used to say what he's talking about. Today it's making sense. Anyway, that's it.
Okay. Okay. So in this particular verse, we have seen only the 4 pranas are covered. Udana again is left out. Yeah. We will read the verse 9, which actually talks about Udana and how it is linked to the elements outside. Yeah. Again, the same. Adhyatma, Adi Daivika, Adi Bhautika, Adhyatma. So here, 9th verse. Tejo Hava. Udanastasmad Upashanta Tejaha Punarbhavam Indriyair Manasi Sampadhyamanaihi. So the Udana is now being told that is equivalent to the external fire. Tejo Hava Udana Tasmat Upashanta Tejaha. So the external fire indeed is Udana. So Vyana is the wind that we have seen, and here the Udana is being told that it is equivalent to the external fire. Yeah. Therefore, he whom the flames are gone out enters another body with the senses absorbed in the mind. Yeah. Indriyair manasaihi sampadhyamanaihi. So the description is being given in terms of how Udana works in terms of taking out that the soul from the physical body out through the Shushumna. So here the Udana, so the same concept is being taken forward by the Rishi here. He says this Udana is equivalent to the external fire. If you really see, when we in movies also, you will find that if somebody wants to test whether the person is dead or not, they will touch the physical body. If it becomes cold, that means person is gone. Yeah. So this cold aspect, when we talk about, means the fire has gone out of the person. So Udana is equivalent to that fire. And when Udana takes out that particular soul out of the body, that actually means that the fire aspect is taken out of the physical body, and body is no longer capable of maintaining the temperature. So again, as we said, these are all symbolic versions that we are seeing. Yeah. So it's only symbolism that we are seeing in terms of Bahyaha and Antar. So inside it is equivalent to your physical body temperature, and outside this Udana Prana is linked to the fire outside. That is how we are talking about. And it actually talks about in terms of the senses absorbed in the mind, it enters another body. So Gurudev says that there are three aspects here which move from one body to the other body. One is the Atman, Jivatma, the soul, or whatever definition in English we want to call that. And Udana Prana is another important aspect which is there. And the senses absorbed. Senses absorbed, very interesting that Gurudev says that when a person is about to die, you will find that the sense of smell, sense of touch, sense of seeing, everything is withdrawn into the physical body, and you stop seeing. The person stops seeing, stop hearing, stop smelling. All the senses are withdrawn into the mind, and the mind in turn absorbed into the Udana Prana. What do you mean by mind getting absorbed into Udana Prana? It is the nothing but the samskara in terms of vasanas that are taken to your next life. Like it is happening on daily basis. Really speaking, every deep sleep, every mind, intellect is withdrawn into that particular causal body, Anandamaya Kosha, and when we get up, the thing actually comes back. It is withdrawn into the, and Hrudiyesha Atma is how it is described. Everything is withdrawn into the Atman, and then that Hrudiyesha Atma, it comes back. Here, when we talk about from one body to the other body, it says that all your aspects that are there in terms of the vasanas, the tendencies that one carry from one to the other, will go into the from one body to the other body. So these vasanas are carried, and also the Jivatma is carried, and the Udana Prana is the one which actually carries. And when it goes, the fire in the body also goes away, and hence the Udana becomes the fire becomes the Devata for this Udana Prana. Are you guys there? Can you hear me?
Hear you.
Okay. Anyway, it's already 5 minutes beyond, so we will stop here. I think you seem to be having some issues with this one internet there. Hopefully, it will get resolved by next week. Yeah. We'll stop here and take it up in the next class. Yeah.
We have next week class.
Yeah, we will
Next
have
week, right?
21st, we will have our class. Yeah. Any issue in next week, Miniji?
No, I don't have any issue.
Well, next week
It's a long weekend, right?
it's a long weekend, so we won't have classes here. I don't mind coming. Parents may not be coming. You can
Oh,
hear
it's
us?
a long weekend, is it?
Yeah,
Then,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
no problem. We can have our normal this one. Whenever long weekend is, we will not have the class. So we will meet on 28th.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
28th.
Okay.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Okay, if anybody has any
technologically savvy.
Questions?
No,
Oh.
there are
if
so
you
many
get any
questions, but I don't
doubts
know which
later,
one.
you can raise the questions in our group also.
One big
If there is something, maybe I can send a voice message if you raise any questions in the group. Okay,
Okay.
another option. Okay, Hari Om then.
Hari Om, thank you.
Hari Om, Hari Om.
Hari Om.
To just fix
Would
the
we-
internet.
Would we have a